Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of a Man once again, and today we are doing another manga review. Now today's manga review is going to be over Mashima Heroes, which is Hiro Mashima's newest work, the one that's come out the most recent, at least in the US. And it's written by Hiro Mashima, obviously. It's published by Kodansha, as you guys can see right there. The demographic is shonen, and the genre is fantasy, and I guess you could even call it space fantasy if you include Eden Zero. Now, there is no adaptation yet, but Eden Zero is getting an adaptation soon, so I assume that this might get like a small OVA at one point. I mean, Hiro Mashima, a lot of people complain about him, but he brings in quite a bit of money, in my opinion, and he's rather popular with a lot of people, so I wouldn't see why they wouldn't, make this into a little short anime or OVA, right? And I hope they do because I would really enjoy watching it, but that's not here or there. So the premise of the story is basically that the three teams end up on this island called True Island. And they meet up with each other and kind of have a bit of a rough start, but then join forces because, we're all friends now. And they have to battle this evil guy. And that's basically it. It's not really complex, but it's fun. So the plotline here, and I'm going to put this down now, is good. It's enjoyable. The whole point of it is to get the characters together and interacting. And it succeeds in that. It's not the greatest plotline, though. It's, fair. It's kind of on par with early fairy tale, right? Like the first couple of chapters, or like the first volume or two of fairy tale. It's on par with that. It's not crazy, but it's a nice short story that highlights, our main characters are the good guys, the bad guys are bad, and they won't succeed because our main characters have the power of friendship. And that's fine. It's good. It's, classic Hiro Mashima. And it really isn't a problem because it's a 10-chapter short story. It's like a one-shot, basically. It's not a problem in a short-term story like that, right? You can't really complain about it if it's only 10 chapters. And it's all kind of based around the lore of Rave Master, which is interesting. I haven't ever read Rave Master, so it was fun to kind of interact with that story because I haven't done it before. And it kind of did drum up a little bit of interest in Rave Master from me, which I haven't really ever had. The problem is that it's out of print and it's somewhat rare, so I don't think I'll ever get around to reading it. But, if I ever pick up or ever see it out in the wild, I'll pick it up, right? So there's a bad guy and there's our good guys, and they kind of join forces. They meet each other, then they kind of have a rough time connecting with each other, right? Because everyone's kind of different. And then they properly join forces. There's some battles. They beat the bad guy. And then there's a bit of a revelation at the end, which I thought was really cool. I thought that little aspect of lore was really, really interesting. But I won't really spoil it because it's like the whole point of the story. The characters here are fun. Like I said, meeting the Rave Master characters was really interesting. And I do have to point out that if you're sensitive to spoilers of the visual kind, like, oh god, I saw this character and I haven't seen this character before, you might not want to read this because there are some small panels where you see characters that you might not have seen if you haven't read Rave Master or the first 3 volumes of Eden Zero, right? It doesn't really bother me. I think spoilers are really irrelevant without context. So it doesn't ever bother me to see anything, right? But I know a lot of people are sensitive about that. So if you are, please make sure to be careful when you're reading this. So yeah, the characters are all kind of similar and they all look pretty much the same, honestly. And that's not really a problem for me. I don't think it's a bad thing for mangaka to reuse their character designs. Mostly because who cares if they look the same? No one complains when the same actor gets typecast in a bunch of different movies. It doesn't bother you that they look the same, even though they're playing different characters. Why does it bother you when it's, drawn? Yeah, it's kind of like low effort maybe, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you enjoy the story. What the characters look like, ultimately, isn't really relevant, right? They're just vehicles for the story to occur and for the story to affect you. It doesn't make much of a difference if they all look the same or not. I mean, from an artistic point, I guess it is kind of lazy, and it would be better if the characters look different. But from a purely reader's perspective, someone that just enjoys the story, I don't really think it's all that important. Because within the same story, everyone kind of looks different, right? Like, Gray and Natsu don't look the same. Natsu and Loxus don't look the same. Natsu and Lucy don't look the same. So it's not a problem. It's not like Takeshi Obata and Sugumi Oba, where like all their male characters look the same, all their female characters look the same. And it's not even that they're the same character types with different hair colors and different outfits. It's literally like the same face and the same body shape and the same like facial structure, right? I don't know. It's not really fair to say that Mashima's lazy just because he uses the same character designs. Or I guess it is fair, but it doesn't really matter, at least in my opinion. So everyone can kind of have their own thing. But it's funny how they kind of incorporate that into the story. It's like, they look really similar and they act really similar. That's kind of odd, right? And there's a bit of byplay between, Fairy Tail and Rave Master. Apparently, the Rave Master people have two characters that are dragon kin or dragon people or something. And they get scared of Natsu and Wendy when they reveal that they're dragon slayers, which is funny. It was kind of cool because it's like this grown man, kind of looks like Luxus. Or Laxus? I don't know how to say his name. And he's scared of Wendy because, oh my god, she's a dragon slayer. She might kill me. And I thought it was funny. And I enjoyed how everyone interacted. It was really fun. Now, the one thing I do want to mention is that he mentions Aki and Fuji, which are two other characters that he says are there, but that are not going to appear, because there's a whole joke about how Natsu, Shiki, and Haru all have names that have to do with seasons. And Aki and Fuji are the two seasons that are missing. And so I was like, is that a spoiler? And he's trying to, or is that like a teaser? And he's trying to tell us that he's going to make new series with those characters? Or are those characters from series or works that I haven't read before? So if anyone knows that, please let me know in the comments. I would really appreciate it. Okay, so the world building is interesting. It's mostly based around the Rave Master lore. So it's kind of different if you're mostly a Fairy Tail fan. It's not really all that different. I mean, they all have pretty similar powers even then. But it's kind of like the best part of the world building is actually near the end. And it kind of has to do with the climax of the story. So I won't really tell you what it is, but the magic is fun. It's all classic Mashima. It's like explained enough that it's fun, or that you can like see the problems with it, or like you can see how it can affect our characters, but it's not so developed that you can figure out how to beat it without the power of friendship, right? Which is fine. I don't really have a problem with any of that. I think it's just, the point of it all is just to bring the characters together. And so it's not going to be super strong. And so I can't really complain about it, right? But it works well. It does what it's supposed to. And that reveal at the end that I was talking about earlier is really, really fun. So yeah, that's basically it. Now, the art is good. I think it's really enjoyable. It's a lot more refined than Fairy Tail. And it's definitely a lot more refined than Rave Master. It's more or less the same as Eden Zero. There's a few shots where I'm just like, oh god, that looks horrible. But just about everything else was great. It was really fun. It's kind of that like really rounded style that kind of pops our characters out. Like all the girls have really defined curves and all the guys have really defined musculature. And it's just, cool and fun and enjoyable. And it's not really anything special about it, but it's definitely unique to Mashima now. Because I used to always think that Hiro Mashima's style in Fairy Tail was really, really similar to Oda from One Piece. And it wasn't really a problem for me, but it was kind of like a little weird. So I really like that he has his own style now, and it's a lot more refined. But yeah, that's basically it for that. Now, the fan service, there's lots of light, ecchi moments. In that sense that, like, if you're 14, this would be really interesting. But if you're anything older than 14, it's probably like, okay, yeah, it's just another shot of boobs or butts, and that's it. It's not really, all that special. A lot of it is also kind of that, like, sexual / perverted comedy that I guess a lot of people complain about with Mashima, but it's just kind of like funny to me. It's like, it's not hilarious, but sometimes it is kind of funny because it's ridiculous. It's like, oh god, nice, Lucy got tied up by tentacles again. Great. Like, it's so stupid because it doesn't really add anything, but she just always gets in that same situation, right? So it's funny in that sense. But yeah, that's basically it. I would rate this a 4.5 out of 5. I think mostly because I was expecting a little bit more. I thought there was going to be a slightly, more interesting plot line. But overall, I think it worked really well. I mean, for a crossover episode or a crossover one-shot, I think it worked nicely. I can't really complain about anything, but I would have liked a little bit more. So that's basically it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you did enjoy, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought about Mashima's Heroes. And yeah, see you guys later.